The following video contains subject matter which is not acceptable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Please note that the opinions and views in this video are mine and mine alone. If you don't agree with them, or you do agree with them, don't let me influence your decision. You and you alone can figure out what you can do about this situation. Black Lives Matter. They really do matter. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to this Degrassi Flash video, if you will, on Monday, June the 22nd, 2020. So anyway, within this month, there's been a lot of problems in the world, mostly to do with racism and police brutality. And that has to do with the George Floyd case. I had made a video a couple of weeks ago about if Degrassi was racist, and I said no. Ignorant, yes, but racist, no. I believe I made some mistakes, and I forgot to include black characters such as Shantae and a few others, but that's my fault. So anyway, of course, if you've been reading the news about the police brutality on minorities and all that, that is not good and all that. Now, I agree with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, we already had a Black Lives movement thing like 4 years ago, and it didn't change anything. It didn't change as much as we all wanted it to change. And now this is happening and all that. So basically, I agree with the protests and all that. A lot of peaceful protests. There were a lot of violent protests to start with, but then they turned peaceful. I believe everyone just basically thought to themselves, peaceful protest meaning that the police can't be so stupid. But the police have been stupid. There have been instances that they basically have hurt the wrong person. Heck, some Buffalo police officers basically shoved a 75-year-old out of the way for some damn reason, and then basically the city of Buffalo now has to find a lot more police officers because, you know, they all quit en masse. So, yeah, all that. Now, of course, this does have to do with the next episode in my thing. And basically, this episode is one that might trigger a lot of people in the Degrassi universe. But you'll be thinking to yourself, has Degrassi done a storyline to deal with minorities? And yes and no, in a sense. But in a way that basically it's just about making them stereotypes and all that. You know, Allie and Sav's parents being Muslims and basically favoring one over the other because it's tradition and all that. But yeah. But no, this is a big story. This storyline started in season 16, aka Deck Class Season 2. Basically, what ends up happening is a big fight happens. Northern Tech and Degrassi are volleyball rivals. Northern Tech decides to throw Degrassi off their game before a big match. So they basically pull the fire alarm and steal the girls' clothes after something happened. And basically, sorry about that. That's not Black Lives Matter thing. Unfortunately, if you want to look at my couch, that's something to do with a side project to do with dealing with sports tests in 2020. I apologize. That was not the right message, and I don't want to falsify things. So regardless, so basically what ended up happening is that Northern Tech got Degrassi for it. Degrassi needed a way to get Northern Tech back, so they decide to draw the Northern Tech players as zoo animals, basically because people called the school the Zoo. I thought the school self-called themselves the Zoo, but I guess not. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is basically they draw some nice zoo characters, but then they draw gorillas, and the main team captain is a gorilla. So basically, you know, in the black culture, gorillas are not a proper term. I know that Muhammad Ali, in his famous fight trilogy with Joe Frazier in the 1970s, referred to Frazier as a gorilla and all that. But they were both black. But, I mean, it was just basically trash talk and all that. That type of trash talk in boxing doesn't really go down much in the 2010s. In the 2020s, if you will. But anyhow, the Northern Tech players decide to sit down and protest over the fact they were drawn as gorillas. Basically, of course, Degrassi gets in trouble for their racist poster, quote unquote, and basically Frankie is made the scapegoat, and basically because the poster was her idea, they throw her off the team. The administration didn't do that to Frankie. The team did it to them. Frankie was lost. She's like, we all participated in the poster thing, and you're basically throwing me to the wolves? Well, Shay didn't participate in it. Shay actually went over to the opposing team's captain, I think Carrie, I don't know her name, but basically said that this is kind of stupid and all that. And basically Carrie said that you don't get how harmful it is to black people and all that. And everyone's like, well, how did Shay not get represented? Like, Shay's dad told her about these things, but why did Shay not have a clue? Like, why was she clueless? It could possibly be because her dad did not want to tell Shay the ugly truth about black culture, or basically that Shay was, in a way, treated well, instead of, like, not being black and all that. So basically, Shay decides to join forces with the volleyball team to basically out Frankie as a racist and a liar. Frankie tries to apologize, tries to make some arrange a mixer, trying to get herself on everyone's good books. But unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. So practically, you got yourself Throwback Thursday, which was the 500th episode in the Degrassi universe. And I do believe, I can't remember if it includes Kids in Degrassi Street, because, that was the original show. And then you got yourself Degrassi Junior High, Degrassi Next Gen, Degrassi 10 to 14, and then Next Class. Because, some people say Next Generation is from 1 to 9. I say it's 1 to 7 because that's when Emma graduated. But, that's just me. And besides, the other Degrassi universe would be 8 to 14. That would be 7 down the middle. 7, 7, and then Next Class 4. Makes sense to me. Mathematics has my brain as well. But, whatever. So, anyway, it's just harsh. So Throwback Thursday was basically, it's supposed to be a celebration of the Degrassi school, and bring back some old faces like Liberty, Emma, I would say Holly J, a few other people like Paige, Marco, Mo, and a few other faces. I can't remember all of them. It's weird how no old teachers came back. I guess Raj basically was, once he left, he left. I mean, it would have been nice to see something about him. Or Hatzlakos, or even Pill. Ugh. But anyway, yeah, so they basically make Throwback Thursday about getting Frankie, and basically getting all that. But there was also another problem with that, is that the episode previous, Tiny was defending Shay from somebody, and then they ended up getting a suspension from Simpson. And of course, the students are pissed off that Tiny gets suspended for trying to protect Shay, and basically, Frankie gets no flack for her racist depiction. And Simpson basically says, Frankie's been thrown off the volleyball team. That's good enough. I don't think so. Basically, the problem is twofold. Like, A, Frankie being racist and all that, and B is that now Simpson basically refuses to listen to them. But the problems also intensify when basically they decide to take Frankie out because of her white privilege. Of course, as you all know, Frankie is basically the daughter of Mr. Hollingsworth, who somehow managed to be Toronto mayor and all that. Obviously, in real life, there wouldn't be like a Toronto mayor. Well, Rob Ford, but, I'm like, this type of guy, like with all that backlash against him, how the hell did he win Toronto mayoral election? I did a Reddit post last week saying that, how did this guy win? And I bet he only won because he would give funds to Degrassi, whereas, most Toronto mayors probably will not allow Degrassi to get funds because of the shit that Degrassi gets themselves into. So, regardless of what ends up happening, and maybe it's because his kids go to that school, so basically he's showing favoritism. Gosh, seems like other leaders. So, regardless, yeah, and nobody fucking wanted to, I apologize. for that word. I should not have said that. Nobody wanted to admit it as much. Nobody helped me with that post, so I basically deleted it because it's like pointless. I'm trying to prove a point, and they say, oh, it's about Trump, blah, blah, blah. This is Degrassi talk, not Trump talk. But regardless of the situation, well, things happen. So basically, yeah. So basically, they turn it into the fact that Frankie basically gets lucky because her dad's the mayor, and that basically she's from white privilege, and basically they don't know much about black people, and basically blacks are slaves and all that. I don't know. Well, of course that's false in a sense, but I'm just saying that that might be the Holy Spirit thinking. So basically, they turn it into basically getting rid of Frankie because of her white privilege. They needed her to be punished and all that. Now, of course, we all know Throwback Thursday was basically the big subplot was that Tristan was basically nitpicking over who could be part of the talent show during the alumni dinner and all that. And it's like, why is Tristan being so stupid and all that? But it kind of gets me thinking about Tristan. It's like, yeah, Tristan has some problems and all that. Well, after Paige and Marco talked to the group about the Black Lives Matter and how Simpson may be unfair and all that, then they decided to do the Black Lives Matter march outside the school, and basically the cops won't like it one freaking bit. So basically, when you look at that, it's like, did they really march? Well, the march was basically about how Black lives should matter. True. That I accept. The march was also about outing Frankie as being with white privilege, and also a way to get mad at Simpson because of how he refused to talk about it. So basically, Lola gives an interview to people and says that basically we want to talk about the issues. We don't want like something to be done right away. We just want to talk about the problems. And Simpson agrees and basically says that we'll have a discussion on how things are. And so basically that calms that fury. All that. Now, other people, I'm thinking to myself, did Tristan basically become a jerk in that episode because of Simpson? Could Simpson have basically told Tristan, I don't want any distractions and all that? I kind of am convinced that Simpson, for being ignorant and all that, is at fault, in a sense. And probably he wanted Tristan. And I know Tristan wanted to please Holly J with how he handled the school in his presidency, but it didn't work out that way. Frankie is pissed off that nobody wants to give her any help. So basically, Frankie decides to run away and forget her troubles. Jonah convinces her to come back to the school. And basically, Frankie, I think, makes one major apology. They don't completely accept it, but they let her back on the volleyball team. I think she learned her lesson. Well, long story short, they win the volleyball championship, but then there was a major bus crash with Tristan and many students being with the pep rally and all that. So unfortunately, the bus crashes, and that leads to trouble. Tristan loses his school presidency, mostly because he's in a coma, and so he somehow gets voted in. Maya goes through her depression again. Yeah. And then basically, yeah, the Black Lives Matter situation gets poof out there. It basically just disappears after season 16. So anyway, there were two posts about the Degrassi Reddit about the situation. One was by Logical Button, and one was by Esme to you. So basically, Logical Button said the whole Tiny Bell protest was stupid. I don't know why. It says that Lola throwing a protest for Tiny being suspended was pointless as fuck. It had nothing to do with race. He was suspended for being in a fight. But that whole storyline was pretty dumb. And a lot of people said some stuff. Even I did. Well, anyway, Coron Seabride 2020 said, I disagree. Some dude who wasn't a student at Degrassi just showed up to stalk Lola and then attacked Tiny. I feel like it was viewed like Tiny and the Stugs are fighting. Imagine if Tiny were white and the other kid was still black. They would view it as, oh my god, someone from the internet showed up to Degrassi to stalk Lola and then attacked Tiny. And all that. I basically wrote down to this guy, and I got some Reddit points for it. I got 5. I basically said the whole thing had to do with why Tony got suspended for defending someone, and Frankie faced no repercussions for her racist poster. They felt like Snake missed the point on a lot of stuff, and it also didn't help him that people like Paige agreed with how minority students got punished more than white students. Snake, I know, seemed like an ass in this episode, as he didn't want to even acknowledge the issues going on, hoping it wouldn't ruin the alumni event. Tristan's behavior is deplorable, too, but possibly Simpson told them to keep the controversy from ruining this event. At least Simpson caved to students' demands. It was just to discuss the issues and all that. They wanted Frankie to pay for her upbringing and privilege. And then someone said, I think that was the point. Sometimes they are misguided because they have friends with each other and see no wrong with what other people are doing. One person said, Sig and all the parallel characters from always fought and got little to no repercussions. It was about race. Yeah, and people said that basically it was all about being woke and all that. Like, I honestly think that, it was about something. Like, they made it about something. No, like, how did Tiny get into a fight for protecting somebody? And it was Lola. I said Shay. Shoot. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, Esme did the Why I Love the Racism plot in season 2 next class. Here we go. It says, when first watching the storyline, I hated the first couple times. I thought, Frankie obviously isn't racist, and she didn't mean to be. Therefore, she can't be racist. I was thinking with the mindset that racism is black and white, and that people do say the N-word, and people who aren't racist. Like Frankie, I didn't know the monkey stereotype. I call a gorilla. Same thing. Was when used for the black community. I didn't realize the problems with calling the ghetto the Sioux. Frankie could have been me, and I think that's why I sympathized with her so much. When asked to apologize, she was an asshole. She sent the only black player, and she sent Shay to apologize for her. Oh, I didn't see that. If she was actually sorry, she could have at least shown up. She was afraid to face the opposing team. Because for Frankie, to say sorry would mean admitting she was racist. Frankie was too scared of being called a racist to admit, blame, and apologize. She was too afraid to be called a racist to change herself and see what she did was wrong. Now, of course, keep in mind, this is what the post says. I don't share any views with this. I feel like if Frankie hadn't sent Shay to apologize and wasn't running away, they wouldn't want her off the team. I think kicking Frankie off the team was extreme, but she didn't handle the situation. She pulled the I don't see color card and was defensive and didn't want to accept the responsibility. She never listened to what the other team had to say, even though they experienced racism. Frankie never had to experience racism, and she's rich, so she really doesn't know what it's like to struggle because of your race or struggle where you come from. And the girls do. But Frankie didn't listen to them. She talked over them and gaslit their experience, saying, race is stupid. Let me teach you guys about race. You didn't experience racism, etc. At the end of the day, Frankie's manner hurt. It was racist in classes. Was this her intention? Of course not. But that's the whole point. You don't have to have bad intentions or hate black people to be racist. When people call you out for being ignorant like Frankie was, you have to listen. You've got to take your guard down. Frankie did what you're not supposed to do, being too scared of being called racist to admit blame. If you put the fear of being wrong aside when getting called out for something ignorant or racist, focus should be bettering yourself instead of being in denial. So yeah, basically, this person did a lot. She put it into a better context than I did. So basically saying that Frankie basically tried to hide the fact she was a racist and all that. So yeah, it was on her head. I mean, Frankie could have just done something about it. Anything. So basically she sent Shay. I think, well, in defense, I think Frankie basically may have thought that Shay could quell the situation because they're both black. Obviously that's wrong, but I mean, that's probably what Frankie's thinking was. Bride said, my only problem with her getting kicked off the volleyball team is that the whole team, minus Shay, made the banner. I understand they're saying that Frankie drew the gorilla, but not a single one of them said it was wrong. They actually laughed at how good her drawing was. So basically, they should pay for it. Also, Shay wasn't even racially offended at first. She was just mad they did a prank. And the other team's captain told her it was racist. Her dad had to explain to her why it was racist, so then she got mad at Frankie for not knowing something she didn't know either. Shay could have explained it to Frankie, but you can't stop ignorance by shunning instead of educating. And Esme said, that's true. It could have, the show should have done better. Educating others was important. The outcome shouldn't have been taking Frankie off the team and then her coming out back for no reason. It should have been the team learning something, or Shay explaining it like her dad. And said that these things are tricky, and privilege keeps some people from seeing racism because they've never experienced it. Kicking Frankie off the team almost represents just ignoring, condemning, and punishing people instead of educating them. Frankie was a scapegoat, and that's why the team was fine with kicking her off. They probably felt guilty too and didn't want to take blame. They should have gone more into that, especially Goldie, because of her passion on women's issues. And then someone said, the thing is, it's not a black person's job to educate someone on racism. The writers could have easily made a scene with Frankie going online to research why it was racist and teaching herself about racism. But, I mean, going online doesn't solve everything, because online it's toxic in a sense. I mean, basically, they went out of their way to make multiple meetings with her for her to just deny racism as a problem and not listen. If the show had her educate herself on why the poster was a big issue, it could have showed the importance of listening and learning from her mistakes. So yes, they talked about how Shay was all of that. How Shay basically didn't really get into this situation herself. But I think it's how Shay was raised. Maybe Shay was never given trouble because of her racism. I mean, because of her color. Maybe she got lucky. But I mean, like, still, I mean, people should be blamed for all this. It's kind of like the Rick Murray situation. Small plug on my 10-part miniseries that will start on Canada Day from July 1st to 10th. There'll be one episode per day. Hopefully it works out. But anyhow, what I'm going to say is this. That basically the Rick Murray situation, it's like you can blame all these people, but there were more people that should have had the blame and basically weren't blamed. I mean, the student body basically made Rick's life a living hell and all that. I mean, they probably got punished in some way. I think the zero tolerance policy was basically a way to get back at Degrassi for their stupidity and all that. I figured that Hatzalakos might have put a zero tolerance policy in place. It's like, well, was there ever one for Degrassi? I don't think so. I think that basically the school board said enough was enough. This whole Rick Murray situation, it's zero tolerance for anything that's got to do with bullying and all that. And bullying didn't go away at Degrassi. There was still more bullying, crap, and no expulsions in a sense. So logically, I mean, you got things to happen. The problem is that, there were a lot of people that didn't want to accept blame. I mean, obviously, Jay didn't want to accept blame because of that. Jay was actually happy that Rick died because, they got Rick out of Degrassi. Not in the way that Jay wanted, but, the Jay thing. And Radich, what about him? It's like, did he accept blame? I think he did, but he didn't admit to anyone. I don't think he even admitted to Snake he messed up. I think he just wanted to, because of his ego and all that. I swear Radish's ego was actually bigger than I thought it was. I try to give the guy some slack and all that. But in that Rick situation, I mean, Rick was his own worst enemy. If Rick was honest with everybody about how he was treated and all that, I think they would have stopped the bullying. I think it would have been less dramatic, and maybe Jimmy might be walking. So anyway, I'm all for it. But yeah, it's like, people refuse to take accountability. That's kind of like Radish in a sense. But yeah, everything worked out. But I feel like they just left the racism stuff out after Frankie came back on the volleyball team. It just doesn't make sense. And of course, in no shape or form do I agree with Frankie's views on this racism thing. Basically, Frankie got out of line. She could have apologized. She could have done a lot more, but she didn't. Thankfully, though, things happened. So anyway, yeah. So that's all I've got for this video and all that. And everyone in my YouTube people, just remember, Black lives do matter just as much as any other minority. Minorities matter. That is what you should learn from this thing. Thank you.